Welcome back to DDB 101. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to debug a RPC flow with DDB. So let's assume we have a pretty simple setup where we have a client and we also have a server, which the client is trying to reach out to the server via the RPC call. In real world, usually we have some code right before the RPC so that it prepares the RPC. Then it sends the RPC to a server. And also on the server side, there is some logic to handle the RPC. Then it returns response back to the client. Then client proceed to do some data processing on the response returned back from the server. In this case, if we want to debug the entire RPC flow, usually one would add a breakpoint right before the RPC so that it can examine the execution flow before RPC. Then you also want to add breakpoint right after the RPC so that we can examine the return value from the RPC and to see how the client handled the RPC response. At the same time, we also want to add a breakpoint on the server side where we can examine the RPC handler logic. Let's jump right into the example. First, let me start DDB. Then we start a server. Then let's first continue the server. Then let's start a client. So you can see the client is attached and all the process right now is paused. Let's try to add in some breakpoints. First, jump to the client side code. Here, I know the client gonna invoke this function to proceed for the RPC. First, let's try to add a breakpoint here, right before the RPC. Now, on this line, the add word count is remote RPC, which is gonna be sent to the server. So we want to add a breakpoint right after RPC so we can examine the logic when you receive the response back from the server. Now, let's also jump to the server side RPC handler. This is the RPC handler the server will execute. So let's try to add a breakpoint here so we can examine the logic of the RPC handler on the server side. Now, we have all the breakpoints set. Let's click the continue button to let the client send the RPC to the server. Here, you can see we're already hitting the breakpoint. Right now, this one is hit by the session 2, thread 43. If we go to this panel, we can see, and we can use this button to show a flattened view of all the sessions. And we can see here, the session 2 is the word count client process. Now, of course, here you can also do stepping. So you can examine the code execution along the way. Now, let me click the continue button so that it can actually send the RPC to a server. Here, you can see the VS Code directly jump to the server-side code. And that's a breakpoint where the server actually hitting. Of course, here you can also do step over to examine all the values here. For example, you can check what's the value of this thing. Right now it's 0. And the newly added value is 2. Of course, after we do the stepping, the word count sum would be 2. Now, let the server side to finish the RPC handler and actually return back to the client side. Let's click continue. Here you can see the VS Code jump right into the client side. This is where exactly the RPC handler returns to the client. Here, of course, you can again do a step over to examine all these values. One trick we can do here is like, let's say we want to examine the word count from the reply. One thing we can do is first click on this and right click, and there's a button called add to watch. And here you can see right now it refers to the function. To actually invoke this function to view the value, we can put things like this. You can see here the number is 2. Similarly, we can also do the same operation on this value. Here you can see the cumulative count is also 2. Now, let me continue the execution and finish all the client-side execution. Let me also clear all the watch point. Now, let me start another client process again. You can see right now the client is attached. Let's click continue button. Then click continue button again to let the RPC reach the server. Here you can see the RPC reached to the server and it hits a breakpoint. This time, let's look at the call stack. If we scroll down a little bit, we can see there's one thread hitting the breakpoint. If we expand a little bit, you can read. This is from the session ID with TID with thread ID 42, which is exactly the one is hitting the breakpoint. Now let's minimize a little bit. And if we look closely to this call stack, we can see there's a label says it called from this this thread ID and this session ID. It means you're actually calling from some remote RPC process. In this case, we can see all the stack frames above this label is from the server side, and all the frames below this label is coming from the client side. For example, let's click this frame. Let's move down a little bit. Here, you can see that's the one who actually invoked the RPC handler. So this is at the client side. It's how you use this distributed backtrace to view all the call stack, even from the caller, which across RPC boundary.